Hey everyone, before we get into the film history lesson, I want to go over some of the stuff that goes along with your final paper. So your final paper is due on the very last day of class, but we'll be doing some things along the way to make sure that you're keeping up with things, that you're researching properly, that you're formatting properly, that you're doing all of the things necessary to pull off this paper. So I have some guidelines, and they are published up on Blackboard under content, under final paper guidelines, if you'd like to go over this a little bit more thoroughly. But I thought I'd make a little video that would kind of lay this stuff out for you as well. So you have to write a 5-page academic research paper in MLA format. If you're not familiar with MLA format, there's a couple of websites that could really help you out. Purdue Writing Owl is really great. It can kind of show you how to do internal citations and just general formatting for the paper overall. Also, there are works cited page formatters. So like EasyBib.com is the one that I generally use, but I think there's like Noodlebib as well. Either one is probably going to do just fine for you. And that will automatically format your sources for a works cited page in a way that's not going to have too many issues. You may find a few things that are a little bit off about it that need to be corrected, but for the most part, it should format things really well for you. So this may be self-explanatory, but your paper must be about film history in one way or another. It doesn't have to be about any of the topics that we covered in class. In fact, I would prefer if you did not just cover like German Expressionism or Soviet montage or any of the things that we kind of covered as lessons in the class. You can kind of dig deeper into a specific aspect of those things if something really sort of drew your interest with those topics. You can also go and research something that maybe we didn't cover. So film noir, which we, kind of touched on for a moment, but didn't really cover. You can certainly do a paper about the film noir movement. You can also write about some things that are a little bit more contemporary. So if there's a filmmaker that you really like, so maybe you really like Steven Spielberg or Stanley Kubrick, and you want to cover them for your film history paper, that is totally fine. It doesn't have to be before a certain year or anything like that. So if it's a filmmaker or film style or movement or type of cinematography that has had some kind of impact, even if it's a very contemporary impact, maybe you want to do like CGI or something, that's totally fine to do. So it has to be 5 pages, and also you need to try to find a very sort of specific area of research, right? So you don't want to do, if you had an interest in CGI in film, you don't want to do the history of CGI in film, because that's not going to fit in 5 pages. So anything that you wanted to do that you may find as a whole book, that's probably not an appropriate topic for a 5-page paper. So if you wanted to go intense on any of these subjects and like very specifically at maybe 2 or 3 movies, that's totally fine. Even if you want to do a filmmaker, you probably have to limit it to just a couple of movies to make that 5-page requirement. Otherwise, you might end up in like a very shallow territory with your analysis. So you have to include at least 2 primary sources in your paper. You can include as many secondary sources as you'd like. Do not include tertiary sources. So tertiary sources are kind of like Wikipedia or like an encyclopedia. It's a source filled with other sources, right? So if you do some kind of encyclopedia entry and stuff, look at their original sources and then go to those things. I don't have a problem with Wikipedia as like kind of a starting point, but you can find in their like list of sources where they got the information from and go there instead rather than cite Wikipedia. Primary sources just mean like direct from the source. So if your paper is about Jurassic Park, your primary source for Jurassic Park would be the movie Jurassic Park. It's pretty self-explanatory there, right? So you want to cover some kind of subject that covers at least 2 movies. You could potentially, if it was all about Jurassic Park, you may cite like a behind the scenes for Jurassic Park, or like an interview with Steven Spielberg, and that stuff would kind of count as well. And any secondary sources would be like critical responses to the film, or anyone's like scholarly research about the film. So like one source is a bit separated from the actual primary source of information. So you have a 4 to 6 minute presentation that you have to do on the findings that you made while researching your paper. It has to include some kind of audio-visual element. So if you want to do a PowerPoint, that's fine. If you want to show a short video clip, that's fine. If you want to use just photos, that's fine too. If you do include video, though, that doesn't count toward your 4 to 6 minutes. And you don't want to include a very long video either. It's just the findings of the paper. It's not anything extra or different than what's in your paper, but it shouldn't be like a recitation of your paper either. So this is your opportunity to add some kind of subjectivity to your research. So in an MLA research paper, you certainly can't like inject your opinions and stuff. And I know we're kind of used to that with the blog entries and stuff, and that's totally fine if you want to, but save it for the presentation and not the final paper. So last day of class, we'll schedule meeting times with you a little bit in advance. We're only at the halfway point. I promise we'll get there. But 4 to 6 minutes presentation on what you found out while researching your final paper. Now there's also all of these checklist items that are on the back page of this. So these things you will turn into me along the way. And this will ensure that you are actively working on your final paper, that you're devoting enough time to your final paper, that it's not kind of rushed, or you're not jumping ahead of your research. So a whole lot of people in undergrad, it's probably not you, but maybe someone in this class, right, will kind of retroactively research. So you basically write your paper and then try to search out resources that support the claims that you're assuming. And that's one way to do it, but that's not a good way to do it. So we're going to make sure that you're researching before you're writing, and that you're kind of following the format properly as well. So on March 22nd, you will turn in a thesis statement. So a thesis statement is just one sentence. It's a single sentence that kind of encapsulates the entire paper. So I had a couple of examples up here. Let's see what they are. Fritz Lang's directing style shifted significantly after the advent of synchronous sound. Okay, so that would be one sentence that tells us what the whole paper is going to be about, right? So it is a full sentence. It's not like a topic. It's not Fritz Lang's directing style, right? That's not a full sentence. It's the entirety of that sentence. So all we're going to look at in that paper is his directing style, maybe before and after synchronous sound, so we can compare those two things and how things changed, right? Likewise, there's another thesis statement here just to kind of give you an example. It says, cinematography developed from the silent to modern eras through various forms of technology. Now, this would be an example of something that's much, much too broad, right? So you'd be trying to cover cinematography from like all of cinematography, the history of cinematography from the silent eras to modern eras, right? So that's definitely a book, maybe a series of books. Absolutely would not fit into a 5-page paper. But I'm giving this whole kind of checklist and dates and guidelines and stuff to you a little bit early, because you need to research before you come up with a thesis statement, right? So if I made that claim that Fritz Lang's directing style changed from synchronous sound, or from the silent era to synchronous sound, if I claimed that and then I researched it and found that it wasn't true, I would be in a bad situation, right? So make sure that you do your research first. You should have a whole lot of items for this works cited page before you even complete a thesis statement, right? Like, you should research maybe 3 or 4 really good sources of information, and you might find some things that are a bit more like tertiary sources. You might go through Wikipedia and stuff initially to find this information, and find something that interests you, that's a good, unique topic that's still in the realm of film history. And we're going to do an MLA outline, so that's with the Roman numerals and the A and 1 and all that fun stuff. And your outline should basically be your final paper, only it's maybe not in full sentence structure. So I'll understand what order you're putting things in, what information you're including, what information you're not, what information you're excluding, and I should be able to give you some really good feedback about the order and the structure of your paper. Now, a whole lot of people turn in outlines to me where, it's very vague in terms of what's going to go here. It's almost like placeholders and stuff, and that's not a good idea. You'll still get the points for it, but you're putting yourself in a really bad position for the actual final paper, because I can't really tell what you're going to write, so I can't give you appropriate feedback on that stuff. That outline, be prepared to be very close to having your final paper done. You need to show that you went to the Success Center or you emailed the Success Center. You can just ask them for proof that you went there. I'm sure they can sign a slip for you and stuff. Last semester, it was only a handful of people that actually did this last step. But I think that it's really helpful and important. So if you've been working on your blogs and you've noticed that you've missed some points because of, proofreading errors or spell check errors, be prepared to lose quite a few more points on an MLA works cited, or an MLA research paper that has a ton of formatting things and stuff too. So even if, you do your research and you know how an MLA paper is supposed to be formatted, it's really easy to make a few mistakes, especially if you don't do this every single semester. So if you go to the Success Center, they deal with these papers like every single day. So they'll be able to tell you, like, oh, look, your font changes from your header to the rest of your paper. You need to correct that. Every single formatting issue on this paper is a point off, so you certainly don't want to have them consistently. So if you have a 5-page paper and there should be potentially 5 headers, depends on your works cited page and stuff too. If you leave off the header or leave off, the page number on that header, that's 5 points off just from a simple formatting issue. So don't let that happen to you. Make sure that you do work with the Success Center, and you'll get points if you just go there and then say, hey, will you write a little piece of paper that says that I visited? You'll get points for it. So each of these things on this list, there's 4 of them available to you. They're each worth 2.5% toward your final paper. So if you do none of these and you turn in an absolutely perfect paper, the best you can hope for is a 90%. And if you do all of these and you turn in no paper at all to me, you get a 10%. So it's worth doing at least, especially if you're not very confident with papers and stuff, or not very confident with your writing. Hopefully you get there as we continue with the blog entries and stuff, but a little bit of a buffer, a little bit of a safeguard if you actually do these things and turn them in on time. It's really important that you turn them in on time as well, though. If you do it afterwards, you don't get the points for it, quite unfortunately. And if you don't turn in a thesis statement, you're really set setting yourself up for failure, because I don't even know what your topic is until much later. So you may have picked something that's just completely inappropriate, and you might write your paper on that, and then it's just a really, really bad position for you. So please do these things and do them on time. We will set these things up as like assignments to turn in on Blackboard. So you'll see like this thing is due as an assignment. You can attach documents. So that's what I would recommend for everything except for maybe the thesis statement. If you just want to type in, the thesis statement, it's a single sentence into the little comments box, that's totally fine. Every other time, I would hope that you would use like the attach function and attach like a document, like a Word document, or if you work on Google Docs, you can download that, and then I think you download it as a Word document and then attach it so I can look at it with the proper formatting. If you take your like works cited page with all the nice hanging indents and stuff and copy it and paste it into the comments section, I'm not going to be able to give you feedback on the formatting. And that's really most of the reason why you're probably turning it in, other than me telling you, oh, good job on your research. So that's kind of how we'll take care of it. Hopefully this was helpful for you and kind of hashed these things out a little bit more clearly than just reading the guidelines over. Feel free to reach out to me via email if anything seems a little bit unclear for you still, or if you have any trouble with any of this stuff. So you might end up in a situation where you're not really sure about the final presentation or how to deliver that to me. And we can kind of work around things if you have some kind of technological limitation. So if you have no camera, like no webcam or something, you're probably okay so long as you have a microphone. If you had like stage fright or something, if you want to like pre-record your presentation, I don't really have a problem with that, so long as it's ready to go on the day. So there's not a whole lot of room for us to miss things. One more thing to at least mention with this stuff, as you're working through your final paper through the rest of the semester, this alleviates some of the workload with your blogs. So earlier in the semester, we had some like either or choices where like you could choose to write about German Expressionism or Soviet montage theory. You had either choice to do. You're going to have that, only it's every other week now that you do a blog entry. So starting this week, you can choose either the Japanese films that we're going to look at, or the one Japanese film we're going to look at, or you can choose to do like the French New Wave, which will be the following lesson. Either way is totally fine. Just make sure that your stuff is turned in on time, and then that will give you some room to do plenty of research on your final paper. Okay, so hopefully not too many questions about any of this stuff. Again, I'm available via email or whatever method you want to use to contact me, and we can talk about it if you have any further questions.